So last month, when I was down with this insane superflu that was sweeping across Europe, I decided to watch Ryan Murphy's new show, The Beauty. I am not the biggest Ryan Murphy fan, but in recent years I've become increasingly interested in the depiction of aging and beauty culture in fiction, and, the reviews sounded promising. Quote, "Yes, it's a satire on unrealistic beauty standards and Ozempic culture, and much else besides," and it was terrible. I lasted 3 episodes. It's basically a spin on that classic lethal virus trope, mixed with Sam Levinson's level of sleazy sensibilities, heavily inspired by Coralie Farjat's The Substance. But it's not the same because the show is based on a graphic novel, and the thing that makes people beautiful, it's called The Beauty, not The Substance, so it's completely different. Obviously. Also, casting Demi Moore's ex-husband in one of the main roles is, I'm sure, a complete coincidence. Like, nothing about this show is subtle. Or deep, for that matter. However, I feel like almost every week my social media gets flooded with the news of yet another celebrity's new face or weight loss reveal, followed by endless speculation about the procedures they've done to achieve this rejuvenated look, and the occasional cloning conspiracy. Come on guys, that's just stupid. All I see are ads for LED light therapy masks, microneedling, like shout out to YouTube for recommending me a video about peptide therapy. So I understand why Ryan Murphy and many other filmmakers are becoming more interested in what I'm calling a beauty body horror. If a classic body horror is concerned with, quote, transformation, loss of control, and the human body's susceptibility to disease, infection, and external harm, end quote, then beauty body horror explores the protagonist's bodily mutation caused exclusively by a pursuit of beauty and youth, by plastic surgery, mysterious treatments, medication, or simply by envy. So in this video, I'm attempting to define the genre and its cinematic language. If a rom-com is nothing without a good meet-cute and an action film needs an impressive car chase, what are the specific themes or scenes that characterize beauty body horror films? There is something about The Substance and films like it that feels strangely like a fairy tale. A very gruesome one, but actually many classic fairy tales have always been like that. Disney's adaptations are pretty PG-13, but the original Grimm brothers or Charles Perrault's versions are something else. For example, in Cinderella, when Prince Charming travels around the kingdom searching for the mysterious owner of the slipper doesn't fit Cinderella's stepsisters, and that's it. Their chances of marrying the prince are ruined. End of the story. Right? Well, in the Grimm brothers version, Cinderella's stepsisters are ordered by their own mother to chop off their toes or heels so that they can fit the shoe, since, apparently the queen doesn't need to walk anywhere, so one toe more or less isn't that big of a deal. It will be fine. It's all for the prince. And they obey their mother. You know the ending. Oh, and then the birds pick out their eyes as a form of revenge. This is what my parents read to me before bed, by the way. The Norwegian beauty body horror The Ugly Stepsister is a twisted retelling of Cinderella, told from the perspective of her stepsister Elvira, and Bridgerton Season 4, this isn't. You have been warned. In the film, Elvira is considered ugly and overweight by pretty much everyone around her, including her mother. And so, to improve her chances with the prince, she gets a nose job without anesthesia, which, by the way, is chosen by her mother. Elvira has no say in what her nose will look like. It's not her choice to alter her appearance, which I think it circles back to that Grimm brothers motif of Cinderella's stepsister's lack of bodily autonomy. And when a new nose, straight teeth, and eyelash extensions still aren't enough, Elvira is given a parasite's egg to swallow so that she'll lose some weight. Yeah, what can go wrong? It's a really good movie. If Sofia Coppola ever made a horror film, this would be it. Twisted, gory, but with a title card written in a pink font. And I think this kind of contrast works really well for the genre. Combining the softness and innocence of a fairy tale with something genuinely gory and violent amplifies the grotesqueness of the film for sure, but it also makes it feel strangely familiar and almost less scary. We see this too in The Substance. Elizabeth Sparkle, played by Demi Moore, is a fading celebrity whose career gets efficiently ended for the sole crime of turning 50. Desperate, she finds a mysterious solution, the substance, if you will, that creates a younger version of herself, Sue, played by Margaret Qualley. But there is a catch. They can't coexist at once, and instead they split their time every 7 days. So, like in Cinderella, Elizabeth's magical transformation comes with a strict time limit. It works until it doesn't. The illusion holds, but only temporarily. And the moment the clock runs out, the carriage turns back into a pumpkin and she's back into her old self. Or, at least at the beginning she does. But by far, the most referenced fairy tale in these films is Snow White and the Evil Queen, especially the mirror, mirror on the wall scene. Every day, the evil queen, obsessively envious of her stepdaughter's beauty, asks her magic mirror who's the fairest of them all. Not to discover the answer, but to confirm it. It's her ritual and it's all about being the most beautiful. Similarly, body beauty horrors use this ritualistic gazing in the mirror to convey the protagonist's inner obsession with their own appearance. The mirror isn't magic anymore, but it doesn't have to be. It still functions the same way. It becomes a tool of validation, a checkpoint to which the character always goes back to confirm that the self-discipline, the hard work, the pain, the maintenance, it all has paid off, and that they're still beautiful, and that they're still enough. But that feeling never lasts, and the same mirror, just like the magic one, can turn on them almost instantly. And again, in the Grimm brothers version, the evil queen isn't Snow White's stepmother, like in Disney's retelling. She's her biological mother. She's jealous of her own daughter's beauty. And that's where things get really uncomfortable. The presence of a parent-like figure is a common trope in these films. It's someone who guides and, more importantly, controls the protagonist's bodily transformation. Sometimes it's a literal parent, like in The Ugly Stepsister, but more often than not, it's a Dr. Frankenstein-like creator who shapes a body and, in doing so, claims ownership over it. The 2012 Japanese film Helter Skelter explores the relationship between the maker and their creation. Liliko is a supermodel and a vision of perfection. Every Japanese teenager wants to look like her, whatever she advertises sells out immediately, and her model agency is run by Hiriko Tada, whom she calls Mama. And at first you'd think she is her mother, her momager, if you will, a woman who turned her daughter's beauty into a family business, very Kardashian-coded. But then the film quietly pulls the rug out from under you. Hiriko isn't Liliko's biological mother. She's not even her guardian. No, she's just her boss. And it's revealed that Liliko was essentially made to resemble her and to replicate the beauty Hiriko herself once had but eventually lost with age. And the film gives you that unsettling feeling that Liliko didn't consent to that level of control. She did undergo multiple full-body plastic surgeries in order to become a worldwide sensation, and her body deteriorates as a result of that, but she didn't realize just how meticulously her appearance was crafted by her boss. Hiriko is definitely the villain of the story, although I do wish the film did something to humanize her, to explain her inner motivation for almost reproducing herself, because that's what really this is about. It's not about control, although that's a big part of the story, and Liliko finds her inner peace only when she takes over the control of her own body in a very gory way. but it's also about the fear of losing something that once defined you. And if you've seen The Substance and you're like, wait a minute, that sounds familiar, because it is. Hi, it's me from the future. I realized I didn't explain that thought well or at all. Sorry. So, in The Substance, the film constantly reminds us that Elizabeth and Sue are one, but what that actually means is never fully explained. You can read Sue as Elizabeth's alter ego, but also as her daughter, because she's quite literally birthed out of her spine. And if you look at their dynamic that way, it does resemble a distorted version of a mother-daughter relationship. And just like Hiriko in Helter Skelter, Elizabeth created Sue because she felt like she was losing her identity that was built around youth and beauty. Hope that helps. I would say that Helter Skelter might be the most emblematic beauty body horror, as so many filmmakers borrow from it, sometimes pretty heavily, to be honest. The film is based on Kyoko Okazaki manga that was originally published exactly 30 years ago, and yet the story feels extremely relevant, but I'm not spoiling the rest. You have to watch it yourself and compare it to The Substance because it's a fun game. For those who don't know, liminal space is a photography aesthetic that exhibits empty spaces that are in between. Hallways, corridors, waiting rooms, airports, roads, gates, tunnels. So, places that aren't destinations in and of themselves, but are transitional spaces. And what this imagery evokes is an eerie, dreamlike, uncanny stillness of being in between worlds or stages of life. Disney's Alice in Wonderland is probably one of, if not the earliest, examples of the liminal space aesthetic in cinema, and it appears in a scene where Alice falls down the rabbit hole. In order to transition from the human world to Wonderland, Alice has to move through a series of strange liminal gates, tunnels, and hallways with checkerboard flooring. Black and white checkerboard tiles, or sometimes chevron or graphic pattern carpeting, are a staple liminal space motif. I don't know why, it just is. And so it makes perfect sense that the beauty body horrors use this imagery as a visual foreshadowing of the protagonist's bodily transformation. After all, the liminal spaces look empty, almost peaceful, like nothing bad could really happen there, which is exactly why they're so effective. In a 1966 film Seconds, this creepy yet liminal checkerboard hallway appears as Arthur is about to die and be reborn with a new, improved identity. In The Skin I Live In, Almodovar puts a spin on that Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole sequence, with his main character, Vera, running through a hallway, stairs, a living room with this graphic carpet, into the locked front door with a checkerboard tile, to show a liminal space between Vera's room, where she's been kept against her will, and the outside world she tries to escape to. In The Neon Demon, Jessie is an aspiring model, and her breakthrough casting and a fashion show both take place in these uncanny-looking liminal spaces. Also, some people find empty museums and empty pools liminal, so even if you haven't seen the film, from the set design alone, you should suspect that something's about to happen to her. Oops. Honestly, if you were to take anything from this video, it's this. In the beauty body horror, the moment you see this Shining-esque hallway or a checkerboard floor, you can be absolutely sure something gory is about to happen pretty soon. There is another variation of beauty body horror that, for one, is less gory than other films I already discussed, and yet maybe even more unsettling. I'm talking about the films where the main character's face is completely covered by something artificial. In the French film Eyes Without a Face, which inspired Billy Idol's song and so many films, including The Skin I Live In, a young woman is forced to wear a smooth, expressionless skin-colored face mask after a disfiguring car accident. In Goodnight, Mommy, a mother of two twin boys returns home after a facial plastic surgery with her face completely covered in bandages for the time of her recovery, and her own children start to question if she actually is their mother or maybe she's just a stranger. It's a very slow film, but the performances are amazing, and I also love how the film plays on the classic horror film tropes with twins, creepy dolls, a cornfield, only to subvert them completely and turn the story into an identity exploration. Because this is what all those films ask. Who are you without your face? And it sounds like a simple question, but it really isn't. The face is how we recognize each other, but also how we recognize ourselves. It's the thing that confirms that we are who we think we are, so if that's gone, what's left? And if you're given a completely new face, or, like in some cases, someone else's, how much of you actually stays the same? Will you forget who you were before? I find these films fascinating because of how uncanny yet familiar this image has become, because tell me why all those at-home LED masks make us look like beauty body horror characters. Except that in films like The Skin I Live In or Eyes Without a Face, that image represents loss of identity, while in real life it's framed as self-improvement. After watching a few beauty body horrors, to say the least, I discovered an interesting pattern. The main characters in those films can be divided into two very specific categories. Category number one is the performer whose career depends on their looks. In The Substance, Elizabeth is an actor turned fitness show host. Jessie in The Neon Demon, Liliko in Helter Skelter, and Hyojong in The Cursed Lesson are all fashion models, dealing with jealousy of their peers or their own. Additionally, The Cursed Lesson also leans into the wellness industry by setting its story in a mysterious yoga studio. In Death Becomes Her, Madeline is an actor, and Mother in Goodnight Mommy is a TV hostess. Category number two is the victim who has earned the right to beauty through suffering. The victim of a plastic surgeon's vendetta, or the victim of plastic surgeons in general, the burn victim, the accident victim. There are very few examples where the main characters are just ordinary people, and to me, this is a surprisingly layered issue. On a surface level, I do understand that by placing the plot inside the entertainment industry or generally in a situation where the character's livelihood literally depends on their age and appearance, it instantly raises the stakes. In The Ugly Stepsister, Elvira needs to become beautiful and marry the prince because her family is broke. If she won't catch his eye, they're ruined, so that's a tough parasite to swallow. But I couldn't help but feel that some of the filmmakers, with an emphasis on some, seem to carry a certain moral bias. They want to criticize the beauty industry, the male gaze, the Ozempic culture, but subconsciously or not, they're still operating under the assumption that the pursuit of beauty is fundamentally shallow unless you have a good reason for it. You're allowed to want beauty if it's your job, or it has been taken away from you, but the desire itself is almost never treated as something neutral. It has to be justified or intellectualized. And look, this isn't anything new. Films about beauty or fashion have always been dismissed as superficial or vain, but it is still disappointing to see that even art house films that aim to show just how exhausting it is to live in a society that pressures women to be beautiful while constantly belittling them for caring about their appearance, to some extent can't escape that prejudice. And of course, one could argue that in some cases the celebrity figure ultimately becomes the victim of their own actions in these films, and they would be right. But I believe this relates to a deeper philosophical question posed by the French philosopher Gabriel Marcel. Do we actually have a body, or are we our body? Marcel believed it's both, and when we treat our body instrumentally, it appears as something that we have. We have control over the body, and we decide what to do with it. But the moment the body actually gets damaged or disabled, it becomes clear that we can't escape our body as it fundamentally conditions our existence. Hence, in beauty body horror, once beauty becomes tied to identity, the body stops becoming something the character controls and starts controlling them. And so the celebrity, sometimes becomes a victim of the very thing that once gave them power. The more of these films I watched, the more I realized that beauty is never really the end goal, just the most visible one. And so, before I finish this video, I'd like to tell you about one more film, Sick of Myself. Signe and her boyfriend Thomas live in Oslo within a small, self-contained creative bubble where everyone is either a photographer or runs a social media agency. It's all very curated and performative. Like, you get the sense that these people don't even like each other, they just meet to brag about themselves. This makes Signe, who works as a barista, feel like she isn't as cool as the group. And as she gets more and more jealous of her boyfriend's increasingly successful career as a Gustav Westman-esque furniture designer, she decides to abuse a black market anxiety medication known to cause many side effects, including severe skin diseases. This film is a mad fever dream. Honestly, I've been debating whether to include it in this video or not because what Signe wants clearly isn't beauty. In fact, she actively destroys her appearance. But what she does want is the exact same thing that Elizabeth, Elvira, Jessie, and Lilico want. To be seen, to be interesting, to feel like your existence matters and like you're still in control of who you are, despite all these crazy beauty standards that are constantly evolving and pushing the bar higher and higher. I'm really glad beauty body horrors exist, and I'm hoping to see even more of them in the future. Even when they're clunky or heavy-handed, they express this kind of anxiety and stress that is still rarely discussed in the media. When I first watched The Substance, I didn't like it that much, and yet I couldn't shut up about it because it forced me to think about my own very conflicted relationship with my body and how I see myself. And look, I wish I could say that I'm completely detached from all of this, that all this crazy advertising for anti-aging tech or biohacking simply doesn't work on me. And I've never done anything to my face, like, who, me? Never. And it absolutely didn't make me feel like I'm Sue. And it's time to pump it up. And judging by the popularity of beauty body horrors, I don't think I'm the only one.